Welcome everyone and good morning. My name is William Newton and I'm the president of WiredScore. Thank you for joining us today for WiredScore's launch in Spain and Portugal. With the never-ending rain in the last couple of weeks in the UK, I can tell you that I, more than anyone, would much prefer to be in a warm and sunny Spain or Portugal in person today. However, thanks to the wonders of modern technology, we're able to meet virtually. And one of the small benefits of us holding our launch remotely is that people have signed up from all across Europe who otherwise might not have been able to attend. Indeed, we've got over 100 people signed up for our event here today. To help you show your participation online, we've added our social media handles to the screen. You'll see live posting here as we progress throughout the event. We have a short but jam-packed agenda for you today, including a talk by Dwek, our Director of Expansion, who will look at the major trends affecting today's real estate market. And then Will Bottery, the Head of Growth Markets, who will announce the forward-looking landlords who have committed buildings to WiredScore and SmartScore certification. And finally, you're going to be joined by some of the brightest minds across our industry in Spain and Portugal on a panel discussion about the future of real estate. But before I hand over to Eden, I wanted to explain why our launch in Spain and Portugal today is so exciting for us. Back in 2013, when we launched WiredScore in partnership with Mayor Michael Bloomberg in New York, we set out to make the world's buildings better connected, to enable a more collaborative, a more innovative, and a more dynamic future. Since then, we've certified over 60 million square meters of commercial and residential real estate, impacting 6 million people globally across 10 countries. But today is a particularly special day for us as we launch in Spain and Portugal with not one but two certifications for the very first time. We're launching WiredScore, the global digital connectivity rating scheme that assesses, certifies and improves digital connectivity in homes and offices on a global scale. And we're launching SmartScore, the global certification for smart buildings that identifies best-in-class smart buildings that deliver exceptional user experiences, drive cost efficiencies, meet high standards of sustainability, and are fully future-proofed. The importance of digital connectivity is not a new idea in Spain. Indeed, Spain is looked at enviably across Europe for its fibre rollout and for its 5G penetration. An impressive 54% of the population already have fibre to the premise, the second highest in Europe. The Digital Spain 2025 agenda shows the commitment from the government in making the country a better connected place. As planned by 2025, high-speed broadband should be available to the whole population. While this rollout of high-speed broadband is faster than most other countries, there are still challenges to overcome if seamless digital connectivity is to be achieved in buildings. We first started speaking with landlords in Spain and Portugal as far back as 2018. It was clear to us then, and is even more apparent now, that digital connectivity within buildings is a problem for both landlords and tenants. And this has just been magnified by the recent pandemic. Digital connectivity has been a lifeline for so many businesses since the beginning of the pandemic, with the majority of people splitting their time between the office and their homes. Yet, the research we've carried out shows that most workers in Spain and Portugal still experience issues with connectivity in their office on a regular basis. Our expectations of our offices have also changed. Sustainability is now top of the agenda for office workers, with 63% saying that working in an environmentally sustainable office is very important to them. With the world slowly returning to the office, landlords now have an opportunity to take centre stage and provide their tenants with inspirational and future-proof spaces. That's why today we're so excited to be announcing the forward-looking landlords leading the way in future-proofing their buildings. I'd like to now hand over to Dwek, who will talk you through the trends affecting today's real estate market. Eden?
Thanks, William. Hi, I'm Dwek, and I'm Director Expansion at WiredScore. Technology is redefining real estate. impacting the way we live, work, and socialise, our digital demands are ever increasing and show no sign of slowing down anytime soon. I'm going to walk through how we got here, what the future technological landscape looks like, and what this means for the industry. When much of today's workforce started their first office-based job, this is what they were given. It may not have been beige, and it may have had a flat screen, but up until 2005, the vast majority of office-based work was done on desktop computers. This meant that workers who needed to process information were essentially chained to their desks. Fast forward to now, when someone joins a new company, this is what they're given. We expect to be able to access everything from our phone, no matter where we are, whether that's in our office, out and about, or at home. This shift in ways of working has been made possible thanks to significant amounts of innovation in hardware and software development. Over the past decade, technology companies have been focused on miniaturizing everything. From batteries, to speakers, to processors, all of the components that make up phones and computers have shrunk in size considerably. At the same time, the way we access and use software has been revolutionized thanks to the rise of cloud computing. So what is cloud computing? Cloud computing is the ability to use a network of remote servers hosted in the cloud to store, manage, and process data, rather than doing that on a local server or on your personal computer. The introduction of cloud computing has freed us from being chained to our desks. Today, all that's required for us to access our data and applications is a connection to the internet. Of course, the rise of cloud computing has introduced immeasurable benefits to organizations around the world. But it's also increased the risk of internet downtime to businesses exponentially. As now, if the internet goes down, productivity grinds to a halt. The research company Gartner periodically releases a study that looks at the cost of internet downtime for businesses. In their last report, pre-COVID, they concluded that an hour of internet downtime costs businesses on average €266,000. This figure is 3 times what it was when Gartner conducted the same research just 2 years earlier. This dramatic increase can be attributed to the rise of cloud computing. Whereas once it was a little frustrating not to have access to the internet, now it's simply not possible to work without that access. The widespread adoption of cloud computing can be attributed to 3 main factors: greater flexibility, increased resilience, and reduced cost. Firstly, cloud computing allows organizations to increase or decrease their licenses for applications at the click of a button as their company headcount changes. And of course, when much of the world shifted to working from home last year, cloud computing enabled many businesses to adapt to this new way of working seamlessly and with minimal disruption to productivity. Secondly, from a resilience perspective, organizations no longer need to have the technical expertise in-house to maintain servers. Cloud computing enables them to outsource these services to organizations such as Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud, who have security experts looking after their data. And finally, from a cost perspective, switching to cloud computing means that companies no longer face the capital expenditure and space requirements needed to host on-premise applications. COVID and the new working patterns that it has driven is continuing to accelerate the rate at which businesses are shifting to cloud computing. 38% of organizations currently use mostly or all cloud-based systems, and this number is expected to rise to 59% over the next 18 months. As this number goes up, the importance of internet access and the ability for offices to deliver this will increase exponentially. Tenant requirements are no longer based on the old computers that we saw at the beginning of this presentation. They are shifting to leverage the tenant's investment in cloud computing. As more of the tenant's applications are hosted in the cloud, productivity becomes inherently interlinked with access to the internet. It's therefore no surprise that internet connectivity was ranked as the most important factor for tenants in a survey published by EY last year. If buildings don't get this right, they face a high risk of becoming obsolete. The impact of cloud computing isn't the only challenge that you face when building an office nowadays. Our ever-increasing reliance on mobile phones presents another difficulty for landlords and developers. Today, 80% of mobile traffic originates or terminates within a building. However, only 2% of commercial office real estate has dedicated in-building cellular systems to improve mobile coverage. With desk phones being removed from most offices, our mobile phones are key to our daily productivity. But many workers are still forced to leave their desk or even their office building to get a reliable signal to make a call. And this is only going to get worse with 5G. Since the 1980s, we've seen the introduction of new mobile technologies approximately every 10 years. And with each iteration, the mobile phone has taken on a new and more significant role in our personal and professional lives. 1G brought us voice, 2G brought us text, 3G gave us internet, and with 4G we got streaming. 5G will bring us benefits in 3 key areas: speed, capacity, and latency. Let's start with speed. 5G is expected to deliver speeds up to 20 times faster than 4G. But what does that mean? It means that people will be able to download a 4K film in a matter of seconds and have crystal clear video calls from anywhere in the world. And for businesses, it means that 5G will be able to operate as a redundant, enterprise-grade internet connection. I'm sure many of you have experienced the frustration of being in a large public event with full mobile signal, only to discover you're unable to make a call. This issue is caused by lack of capacity on the mobile network. 5G will be able to manage 1,000 times more devices per square kilometre, which will allow us to connect a greater number of devices to the internet. This increased capacity will enable technological advancements such as autonomous vehicles, which need a reliable connection to the internet whilst moving. And finally, latency. Latency is the delay between a device sending a signal and an action happening. Amazingly, the latency of 5G is lower than that of the human brain. This means that a precise activity, such as surgical procedure, can take place remotely over a 5G connection. So what does all of this mean for real estate? The nature of 5G means its signal is more easily interrupted by building materials. Buildings with existing issues around mobile connectivity can expect to see these problems exacerbated as more network providers upgrade their cell towers for 5G. As tenant expectations around 5G mature, building owners will need to think more seriously about in-building coverage solutions, and that 2% will have to grow. Good digital connectivity is no longer a nice to have for office buildings. It is something that all tenants expect. We've seen the evolution from connectivity originally being considered a tenant problem to it now being a landlord responsibility. Buildings that don't recognise this shift will no longer be able to attract high quality tenants with strong covenants. And long term, this inaction will pose a material risk to their business plans. As we look ahead, the next big challenge or opportunity, depending on how you look at it, for the industry is smart. Users of buildings, be they occupiers, owners, operators, or visitors, want their buildings to be sustainable, cost-efficient to run, future-proofed, and above all, to deliver a great user experience. And they're looking to technology to deliver these outcomes. But smart isn't just about installing a shiny new technology. Done right, it's about a complete shift in mindset, starting with users' wants and needs to deliver real value to everyone who walks through the doors of your building. We're incredibly excited to be able to announce the first set of WiredScore and SmartScore buildings in Spain and Portugal. But before that, we've prepared a video with some of the leaders in the smart building industry, sharing their thoughts on how smart will shape the future of real estate.
It's difficult to imagine why you wouldn't care about smart, to be honest. And that's because if you think about the way technology is so prevalent throughout our whole lives, it's really difficult to imagine why it wouldn't be more prevalent in real estate. And the way we design, the way we build, the way we operate, and the way that we occupy.
It's inevitable. It is the way of the world. We are moving into a fully tech-enabled digital era, and we will need to be ready to adapt and change as it comes. It runs through everything from conception all the way through to delivery, with user experience running all the way through that.
We're a very data-driven culture, and a lot of our insights and the decisions we make now are based on the data that we receive.
Technology is changing commercial real estate at a very fast pace, allowing us to fundamentally reevaluate not just things like productivity, but importantly, the environmental impact of buildings.
I mean, at the end of the day, a building is a living and breathing element. While it's defined by concrete and glass, it's what is inside on a technological basis that will define its performance and customer satisfaction.
Smart buildings really, really matter right now. We're just coming out of the end of a global pandemic, and actually I feel more comfortable if I have more information about the environment that I'm working in. And so ultimately, the sort of building that I want to be working in, is a smart building.
I call COVID the great accelerator. And I think real estate, which has been maneuvering its way through digital transformation, has been accelerated dramatically. And if you think about the need for contactless technology moving forward, the ability to communicate with tenants and employees in a more seamless way.
You need to have a conversation, a digital conversation with literally everybody who walks in that building, whether they work there, whether they live there, whether they are visiting. And that feedback loop through our phones is what is becoming, increasingly important in terms of the granularity of data that we're able to collect.
Because of the pandemic, users want to be able to understand occupancy levels through the building and air quality in those areas in order to safeguard their health and well-being. Smart technologies enable us to leverage machine learning and artificial intelligence in order to understand these parameters and provide this information to users.
The role of the office is completely going to change going forward. In the history, we would go to the office to do work. Now, today, we can do work everywhere. We will come to the office to communicate, to be part of a culture.
What's enticing me, what's encouraging me to go to the office? And so we need to have buildings to give you that excitement, that feeling that I can control my destiny with my mobile device, with my tenant app, that this building really cares about me from a health and wellness standpoint.
Buildings have a tremendous impact on the world's climate. The construction and real estate industries account for almost 40% of total worldwide carbon emissions. Different technologies play a key role at each stage of the building life cycle. They help us become more efficient, reduce waste, and save time and energy.
All of this cannot be achieved without technology. And it's there where smart buildings have a big competitive advantage again. By collecting energy data, optimizing the usage of energy, water, whatever consumption, we understand what's really going on there.
We need to have sustainability pulsing through everything in our company. We have an ambition to be net carbon zero very quickly. We expect that of our landlords, and if we don't get that, we're going to demand to move to different places.
We have to start with a shared mind, which comes from a shared purpose, and needing to truly create definition around what success looks like. What are the standards, the non-negotiables that we should, as an industry, align around?
You can't have these developments built in a silo anymore. You have to have strong partnerships with key partners from your engineering teams, architectural firms, audiovisual, building control integrators. It takes a huge team.
Nobody can do it alone, and it's going to be necessary to work together.
It's great to see the industry come together and really attack these issues and provide a ever better workplace for our customers.
Hi, I'm Will Buttery, WiredScore's Head of Growth Markets. I have the pleasure to announce the tech champions of Spain and Portugal and the first buildings committed to WiredScore and SmartScore certifications. We are delighted to have a total of 34 buildings committed to our certifications, with 12 in Barcelona, 21 in Madrid, and 1 in Lisbon. From Allianz Real Estate, Castellana 200 Madrid, committed to SmartScore. From BWRE and Pinebridge Investments, Skylight Madrid, committed to WiredScore and SmartScore. From Dapira Building Barcelona, committed to WiredScore. From Europa Capital, Mitsubishi Estates, and Bonavista Developments, Cristobal de Mora 121 a 125 Barcelona, committed to WiredScore. From Grupo GMP, Arboria, Madrid, committed to WiredScore and SmartScore. From Hines, a new office development in Barcelona, committed to WiredScore. From Meridia Capital, Smart, Barcelona, committed to WiredScore. From Meridia Capital and Partners Group, Torre Meridia, Barcelona, committed to WiredScore. From Merlin Properties, Ática 1, Pozuelo de Alarcón, committed to WiredScore. From Merlin Properties, Campus Adequa, Madrid, committed to WiredScore. From Merlin Properties, Arturo Soria 343, Madrid, committed to WiredScore. From Merlin Properties, Aquamarina, Madrid, committed to WiredScore. From Merlin Properties, Castellana 85, Madrid, committed to WiredScore. From Merlin Properties, Cerro Gamos, Pozuelo de Alarcón, committed to WiredScore. From Merlin Properties, Torre Chamartín, Madrid, committed to WiredScore. From Merlin Properties, Diagonal 605, Barcelona, committed to WiredScore. From Merlin Properties, Monumental Lisbon, committed to WiredScore. From Merlin Properties, Torre Glorias, Barcelona, committed to WiredScore. And from Merlin Properties, Ruiz Picasso, Madrid, committed to WiredScore and SmartScore. From Patrizia and Urban Input, Maroc 25, Barcelona, committed to WiredScore and SmartScore. From Rivoli Asset Management, Alaba 111, Barcelona, committed to WiredScore. Congratulations to all these amazing investors, developers, and buildings. Before our panel discussion, I would also like to highlight the first WiredScore accredited professionals who have qualified in Spain and Portugal, differentiating themselves by helping investors and developers assess and improve their digital connectivity and achieve their WiredScore certifications. I would now like to invite our moderator, Jorge from ElEconomista, to welcome our fellow esteemed panelists to join us in a debate about the importance of digital connectivity and the growing significance of smart building technology in real estate.
Thank you very much, Will. Good morning to you all. With this presentation that we heard from Will, we have the perfect background for our panel discussion today. Let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Jorge Valero. I'm the correspondent of ElEconomista Daily in Brussels, covering EU affairs. And I'm very happy to share with you that we have a great panel for our very timely discussion. Why it's a very timely discussion? Because we know that COVID and teleworking is going to have an impact on the office space needs of tenants, who will become even more demanding, not only in terms of connectivity, but also in terms of the sustainability of the buildings, as we heard. And technology is also going to play a role in this. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panel discussion for today. We have with us Lynn Smith, who is Development Director at Europe Capital, Jose Mittelboom, who is Head of Office Leasing at CBRE, David Brush, who is Chief Investment Officer at Merlin Properties, Grigor Hadjiev, who is Head of Product and Development West Europe at Allianz Real Estate, and of course, Will, who will be also joining our panel discussion. And I have a lot of questions prepared for our debate for sure, but before we start, maybe I will give you a couple of minutes to each of you for your opening remarks and to set the tone for our discussion today. So Lynn, if you want to start.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. I'm the Development Director at Europa Capital. We cover the whole of the UK, Ireland, and Europe, including the Nordics. We are part of the Mitsubishi Estate Company portfolio with over 100 billion assets under management. And I suppose my journey with WiredScore has been quite interesting. I've been involved since the beginning, since 2015, when Tom Redmayne launched it down in London and brought it to the UK. So for me, it's been embedded into our business model and kind of come a journey with me as well. So I'm looking forward to discussing this with the other panel members today, and hand back to Jorge.
Very good. Jose, if you want to be the next.
Yes, thank you, Jorge, and thank you, WiredScore, for inviting me to this exciting venue. Well, I had the office leasing team in Spain We manage over almost 1 million square meters in leasing activity across the country in our full coverage of the country with 9 offices in Spain. Around WiredScore, I've been chasing WiredScore to come to Spain for a lot of Will knows for many years. We are always trying to help landlords to position their buildings as attractive as possible, and we always thought that connectivity and digitalization was key for that. So I'm very excited that finally WiredScore is launching in Spain and Portugal. So thank you very much.
Very good. Gregor, if you want to go.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you very much, and thank you, WiredScore, for this invitation to this very interesting panel. So my name is Grigor, and I'm leading the real estate development activities of Allianz Real Estate in West Europe. This includes refurbishments, developments, technical due diligences, and so on. I'm also very proud to lead the Global Innovation Digital team at Allianz Real Estate, where we develop exciting partnerships and solutions with in the field of smart digital and data. So Allianz Real Estate, I think you know who is Allianz Real Estate. We are now actively entering the Spanish market. We are the largest real estate investor worldwide, one of the largest, and we develop and execute tailored portfolio and investment strategies on behalf of a big range of liability-driven investors. And the reason why I'm here is that since more than a year, we are running an ambitious global asset digitalization and smart upgrade program that we call internally Allianz Building Signature. And therefore, I'm very happy to connect with you in this terrific panel today.
For sure, we will have a lot to hear from your experience with this. So, David, sorry, if you want to add something.
So last but not least. I'm Chief Investment Officer of Merlin Properties. We are a REIT, SOFIMI in Spanish, but REIT, based in Spain, but our activities are both Spain and Portugal. About half of our portfolio is offices. That's a little over 5 billion, between 5 and 6 billion of value in offices. And in 3 cities, Barcelona, Madrid, and Lisbon. And I think you can see from the video at the beginning, we're launching with the WiredScore in each of those markets. We're a young company. We only were formed 7 years ago, and we spent the first 3 or 4 years really just building the portfolio, building the company. But we took a decision about 3 years ago to say, now that we have the portfolio, the next thing we need to do is really to start to look at how we upgrade the portfolio and how we bring technology to that portfolio, to the business. Real estate has historically been a very analog business. I think it's really only within the last 5 or 6 years that you've seen real estate owners look at how they can apply technology to their assets and to their business. And so we really launched an effort to do that as well, both through CapEx, redoing the building to upgrade systems, but also how we would bring different types of technology, whether that was tenant engagement apps, whether that's building management systems, whether that's more efficient ways to manage relationships with our clients and our tenants, or even how we internally digitize our own internal processes. So that's been a journey we've been on for the last 3 to 4 years. And we felt with WiredScore, that's connectivity is a very big part of what tenants are demanding. And so to have a way where you didn't just have to rely upon the landlord's claims of connectivity, you know how to way of proving it with tenants, so we can say we're meeting standards that have been established by a company that has a global presence. And so it lent more credibility, I think, to our statements about how well connected we were. And I think it was said before, but the one thing the pandemic has done is it's accelerated all these trends that were already in place. And now connectivity, given how much of people's business is moving to the cloud, is becoming even more important, I think, for how our tenants run their businesses. And therefore, we have to be more, I think, cognizant of that if we want to really attract the best tenants to our portfolio. So that's really, I think, the core of why we're so interested in WiredScore.
Thank you very much, David. And in fact, this will be somehow my question to kick off the debate, because of course the vaccine campaigns are progressing, restrictions are being lifted. But in your view, what would be the main reason for tenants going back to the offices? Do we miss our colleagues a lot, or the connectivity infrastructure is really key for our daily work at the offices? So I don't know, maybe David, if you want to start, or Lynn?
I'll come in on that one. I think it's really interesting. I sat through a presentation last week from Knight Frank, which they've called Your Space, and it's the second time they've done this study. And I took part in the first one, and the first one was really interesting. That was 4 or 5 years ago, and they talked about well-being and how important that was going to be. But the latest study they've just done, it's over 800 tenants and occupiers that they've gone out to over between December and February this year. And I think what's really interesting about it is it's just changed the list of priorities for tenants as to what they're looking for in this space. And the most important thing that has come out of that, and it picks up on what you just said about what do they want now, what do they want after the pandemic. And actually the return to the office for corporate brand and image has been the #1 priority for them, because they aren't achieving that by people working from home. So it's going to be this blended model that they've been discussing, but getting back to an office that promotes their image, promotes what they do, and that sort of filters down into their employee engagement strategies. So when you look at WiredScore and you look at SmartScore in particular, you can see how that can influence their decision making and whether they will look at your building more favorably than another one that possibly doesn't have that. So there certainly is this trend, definitely, that we're seeing from our investors as well towards sustainability. And I know everyone's been talking about this, and we've all maybe been sitting on seminars listening about ESG and environmental targets that we need to set. But I think what's really clever about SmartScore and WiredScore is you've got the digital connectivity, but you've also got this focus on how the building functions for the tenant. And with that extra, independent review of your building, you can actually confidently say to a tenant, this is real, this is what we are providing. And I think it gives them the confidence then that they're talking to someone that has actually spent the money and invested in a building that's right for them. So it's coming out very strongly in the survey results that have just been done.
Sorry, David, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I do. I agree with what Lynn said. And I guess what I would add is how people come back to the office has been an evolving concept. If you remember at the beginning, everyone was saying, oh, work from home, everyone's going to work from home. Then over time, and as people thought it through more and had more conversations, it evolved into this hybrid model. But even the hybrid model is not a homogeneous thing. Everybody has a different way of how they're going to approach the hybrid model. And in fact, I think it's going to be something that will continue to evolve over time as people find what is the right combination of work from home, work close to home, or work in the office. And so I think it's incumbent upon us as owners to make that decision easier. People want to come back to the office because building culture in a fully remote model is challenging. Training staff in a fully remote model is challenging. So everybody, I think at this point, or I shouldn't say everybody, but most people recognize that it's going to be some combination of the two. And so I think if we as owners do the things that our tenants are asking us to do as we talk to them to make it easier to come back, then I think that will be influential in how the whole model evolves over time. And that's wellness, sustainability, connectivity, all of those things I think are going to be important. The way we design interiors going forward is going to be different. We have a flex business within the overall Merlin called Loom. So we have a flexible space, and we're now combining that with traditional. So we're giving tenants the full option of you can choose to book space by the hour or 5 years, and pretty much anything in between if you want. So I think that if landlords do those kinds of things, respond to what the tenants are asking for, rethink space in that way, and offer as many alternatives as possible, then I think that's what's going to help really keep the office as a central part of how people manage their footprint and manage their staff. And connectivity and the smart score, because we're doing the smart score in one of the buildings. We're about to start here in Madrid, a new renovation. And I think that's going to be that connectivity piece and that smart building and all that entails. I think is going to be another arrow in the quiver when you're competing against possibly someone thinking about a different kind of hybrid model.
Picking precisely on what you say, David, or this hybrid model, or as Lynn described it, the blended model. Maybe, Grigor, if you could tell us what needs or priorities you think that are emerging as a result of these new models or new trends when people return to the office, for example, in terms of office design, in terms of the data infrastructure that is needed, in terms of, I don't know.
So I think that the consequences of this go back to the office for a landlord can be seen from two different complementary perspectives. One is to see what should I do internally in order to get my organization as a landlord fit to handle such kind of situations. And that means that I need to be flexible enough. I need to be able to understand the trends, and I need to be able to understand what the tenants want. And we will hear that a lot. So when you have professionals from the real estate, understanding the demand of the tenant is kind of fundamental. The client is the king. But the question is how. So I think that on one side, we upgrade the organizations, especially for us as a global player. This means to have even this kind of central team that is consolidating this country-specific best-in-class solutions and being able to bring them from one country to another one. This is on one hand purely organizational, and then on the building side, this has also an implication. So going back to the office and having this kind of very radical changes in the behavior of our customers in an industry which is pretty conservative and pretty linear in terms of speed and acceleration. That means that I think there is one big game changer around which we're currently thinking all around, and this is mainly data. So this is the way that we can get closer to the tenants, understand what they want very precisely. And this is also the concept of this building upgrades. David also mentioned that a couple of minutes ago, upgrading the building, but by doing what? So we need to be ready to accommodate these new demands. And this requires to be able to master the building differently. That means that to know it better, to understand how things are working within the building, constantly receiving data from the building also regarding the temperature, regarding the energy consumption, regarding the other hygrometric or comfort indicators. So we need to better understand how the building works. And when we understand how the building works, we can better understand also the behavior of the tenant within the building and adjust our investment decisions based on what we see, so more based on data rather than assumptions, which was the situation, I think, before we entered into the data smart era of real estate that we are currently, by the way, entering right now.
Yes, definitely we will talk about what a smart building is and the role that technology plays precisely in reducing the energy footprint, the resources consumption of buildings. But before that, I would like to maybe get Jose and Will views on the evolution of tenants' needs over the past years, even before the pandemic, because we're focusing too much on the pandemic, of course, which is going to shake how, I mean, the needs of leasing and office space, not only in space but across Europe. But also we saw trends in Spain over the past few years, 5 years, 10 years, precisely also because of as Will said in the introductory video, because of the great connectivity Spain has in terms of broadband, which is something that the government also has mentioned and highlight compared with our, let's say, European neighbors. So, Jose, maybe and Will afterwards, you can tell us how you saw the Spanish, the needs of the Spanish tenants and the Spanish landlords evolve over the past years.
Okay.
Jose, if you want to go first.
Well, yes. Basically, I think they got we've got much more sophisticated office users. We try to adapt one of the main assets of a company, which is the office, the workspace, into a changeable business environment. So you need to be very adaptive. You need to be very alert on what's happening in the market in terms of to attract the talent that it's scarce, and you need to fight for it. So I think that's the main. So offices are really important. It's an important office asset. An important asset for companies. I think David touched on the 3 pillars on lean that are in everybody's agenda: is flexibility, sustainability, and digitalization. Every company is not only about tech companies that are getting digital. It's across the industries. Everyone from agencies to law firms to each and every sector is being digitalized. So getting prepared for that and preparing your offices for that digital talent is key. In CBRE, we believe that. We've created our global digital team. We are exploring each and every innovation across the world. We have our PropTech Challenge, and it's basically trying to be advanced and trying to be ahead of the demands of the tenants to get the buildings ready for that demand. So, and going back to the office is about teamwork. So Jorge, and you need that technology for that hybrid model to work. You need technology. So.
So, Will, how did you see the Spanish needs and Spanish trend over the past years, and why you decided to jump in with the launch of this WiredScore?
Thank you, Jorge. Yeah, I think echoing what Jose just said then, we have seen a real sophistication and a creation of almost a 2-tier market across Spain and a lot of the other markets that we work in as well, where those tenants are so much more demanding what they need from the real estate for so many reasons, but particularly to really attract the people, which is high on people's agenda today, but also rewind, a year, 2, 3 years ago, in that war for talent to attract the best people to your company, because that's what a company is really all about, the people. And in order to attract them, you need a best-in-class environment, and you need to provide everything that they could possibly want or need in order to perform to the best ability as well. And with the likes of WiredScore and SmartScore, we're able to give landlords and developers those tools so those tenants can understand what they're going to be, what they need and what they're looking for, and to help them understand the tech and the digital connectivity of those real estates. There's a number of aspects those tenants will be looking for, but digital connectivity is ultimately business critical. You can't work without it nowadays. And I think we'll continue to see the tenants becoming more demanding and more sophisticated as they continue to return to the office. And it will be about, as David and Lynn have said, it will be about creating that environment which people are really excited to come back to collaborate and to innovate in ways that can be connected. So you're working with people in the office and around the world at the same time. And we're really excited that so many people have already recognized the benefits that WiredScore can bring to them across Spain and Portugal.
And what for you, Will, as well, what are the, let's say, because we're talking a lot about technology and, of course, the digital agenda and the importance of the connectivity. But what are the 3 key technologies that tenants and landlords are looking for? I mean, is it the broadband? Is it even cybersecurity? This is something maybe it's not a proper hardware infrastructure, it's more a software. But I don't know if this is something that when someone is renting an office, they already have in mind, because the infrastructure also plays a role in cybersecurity.
I think that the way that we look at it is rather than specific technologies, it's about how technology is impacting our day-to-day lives in the office. And there's three key themes there. There's the way that our personal lives are so much more connected with the devices that we use. And that means that we need to be connected in so many different ways through our laptops, our phones. And if you think about the number of different connected devices you have at home and in the office, making sure that you can work effectively and quickly with all of those. The second one is the way that our professional lives are also influenced with technology and the ability to collaborate and innovate with people in so many different places, so efficiently and so quickly, thanks to that technology. And the last thing I think that people are very aware of and that technology is really starting to help with now is ultimately the climate crisis and creating a more sustainable environment and utilizing technology to improve that and to create a more efficient building and reducing your carbon footprint through the data that you can create via the likes of SmartScore.
Precisely on this, because we spoke a lot about the twin transition, what is called in Europe the twin transition, the digital transition and the grid agenda. And in this regard, the recovery funds, the EU recovery funds, are going to play a very big role in pushing forward this transition at EU level. And Spain actually is going to be the second largest beneficiary of EU funds. Since I'm a Brussels correspondent, I'm going to be a bit biased asking you this question. So I would like to know, I'm curious to know your views on how big do you think is going to be the impact of recovery funds in the building sector and also in transforming these office spaces into more sustainable and digitally connected spaces? Is it going to be at the end small impact? Is it more, there's a lot of heat, but then let's say the transition is not going to be that big and it will be mostly the private sector who's going to make the biggest push? Or do you believe that this represents really a unique opportunity to make our, let's say, spaces more sustainable and connected? Maybe, Lynn, if you want to start up, but please, this is a debate, a discussion, so whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think it's really interesting, and as a business, Europa Capital, we're engaging with investors all the time, and we meet with them regularly, and I think one of the big changes we've seen probably in the last 12 months is this increased focus on what we're doing as a business with our ESG. And they don't just want us to talk about it, they want us to actually demonstrate that we can show that we're making an impact. And I think that whole the priority has changed for people. They've become more conscious of it over the last 15 months. And it's something that we as a business are trying to tackle head on by trying to get the data from our existing portfolio. And it can be difficult. I'm not going to lie about that. It's difficult. And I think where you've got SmartScore and WiredScore actually built into the fabric of the building, then that job just becomes much easier for our asset managers to collect the data, because without the data, they can't actually answer the questions for the investors. And we've had examples recently where maybe an older property, we haven't been able to get that data quite so easily, so we've had to go and investigate more. But it's there if you've got green leases set up, you're engaging with the tenant. And let's not forget that the tenants as well, the occupiers, they've also got net zero carbon targets as well. 40% of occupiers have those, but I think it's much, much higher when you think about it. What are their objectives going forwards to 2030? I think it's about 77% of occupiers have those targets. So we in the real estate industry, we almost have a duty of care, I think, to help them achieve those targets. They're not just our targets, they're not just our investor targets, everyone should have them. So I think we have this duty to make sure that our buildings are as green as they possibly can, as sustainable as they possibly can, have the data there that we can assist the tenants meet those targets, but also meet our investors' targets at the same time. So it's a really high priority for our business. We are spending money in almost every single building we have. We kind of do a mix. We do partly new build development, but we also do refurbishment. And it can be more challenging when you're refurbishing a building and repurposing it. But if you don't make that investment, then you aren't going to be able to address those concerns of investors who want to do impact investing.
And David, precisely, an important part of the recovery funds will be for renovation building. Is this something that you are, for example, when you interact with the public administration, with public officials, is part of the discussions, or?
Absolutely. And to your question, I'm hoping that the EU funds will have a meaningful impact on the real estate industry. It's difficult to say now because there's going to be so much competition for those funds. And so how much will be allocated to each segment and to each project, or how many projects will ultimately qualify, is unknown at this point. But we have a number of projects that we think would qualify. We're putting 36 megawatt of generation capacity, solar generation capacity, on the roofs of our office buildings, as well as our logistics facilities and some of our commercial centers as well. So we think that's where the EU funds could come into play. We are rolling out our electric charging program, which is now mandated, in fact, by the Spanish government, a recent law that just got passed. So again, to install those chargers, combine that with storage and generation, so you can become like a mini generation, storage, and distribution within your buildings. There's some real value to that, and hopefully I think that would qualify for EU funds. We started a data center business as well, developing very economically, very environmentally neutral data centers, no use of water, minimal use of electricity. We think, again, that could qualify. So there are a number of projects that we're actually already begun that we think could qualify for those funds. And so how much of it we do, how quickly we do it, in fact, could in some way be dependent upon how much of those funds we could, how much of the cost of those projects could be funded by these funds. We're going to do them anyway. It's not a question of when we do them, but the scale that we do it in and the speed at which we do it, I think would be a function of how much of that capital could ultimately be allocated to the real estate industry.
Jose, I think I interrupt you, or Grigor?
Just one mention, just one comment, Gregor. Just
sorry,
Jose. To David's comment, if just public buildings could receive that funding to become a little bit more greener and digitalized, that would be amazing. As the largest occupier of office space, the government it's a key player into this, and basically allow the private sector to do that transformation, easing the permits and easing the access to good finance. That would be enough. So they should, the government should start from their own assets, I believe.
Gregor?
I wanted to add here that to your question, Jorge, regarding how public policies are impacting the markets, we need to think here also that we already have in Europe the European taxonomy that is giving a kind of rhythm of how things needs to be done. And this is not, it cannot be neglected. So especially when you do private transactions, it's when you buy, when you sell, you need to think about that. And Allianz, for instance, is committed to the net zero carbon. So we are following the CRREM pathways for 2050. And every time when we buy a building since 12 months, just to confirm on our side what Lynn and David were saying, we are systematically planning the decarbonization capex when we buy. So it's we are not waiting to see and to work it with public money. But the question is that our investor is already on this level, at this stage, and we can't imagine that we will have assets in the portfolio that are not respecting the high standards in terms of energy consumption and carbon footprint, which is apparently one of the most relevant topics currently, even if it's not, we cannot reduce ESG only to the carbon footprint. And the last example is France, again on the public policy and the power of the state. France has imposed energy reduction to all assets by 40% energy reduction by 2030. And this is a huge game changer. So you cannot wait anymore. So the question of do you do it, it's not relevant because you know that you will do it. So the question more is how do you do it and what kind of technologies and what kind of tools do you use? So the question of do we do it was in France 2-3 years ago. And I think that thanks to the taxonomy, this will very quickly become a kind of European mindset thinking of, okay, let's talk more about how we do that, because in all cases, it will need to be done sooner or later. Better do it soon.
Well, and as you said, in this sustainability transformation, the data is key because this is how you measure the energy consumption, the carbon footprint. So, is having smart buildings the necessary step to achieving this carbon neutrality, which is the European big goal for the mid-century? And how fast are we going to progress into that goal with smart buildings? Because, of course, as we know, carbon neutrality is not only about reducing our energy consumption, but also, carbon capturing and all of that. But before we need to reduce big time our energy needs and energy demand. So how important is going to be smart buildings in this strategy?
Perhaps I can start with this one.
Very good. And then go first, Grigor, and then Will, because he was also talking about the data.
I'll be short. So I'm fully convinced, and this is the reason why Allianz is engaged into the smart buildings, because this is one of the ways to reach to improve the energy performance and to reach carbon neutrality of assets. So this is absolutely fundamental. We cannot do it without that. Is it enough? I'm not sure that is enough, and therefore it is extremely important that three stakeholders are kind of aligning within the time, mainly the landlords on our side. This is what we do, but also the tenants. And then the operators of the assets. So if those three parts are not completely aligned and engaged in the same direction, the efforts of the other one cannot be leveraged, and the result will not be as impactful as it can be if we work together.
That makes sense.
I'll weigh in on that as well, Jorge. I think data is really at the heart of all of these decisions, right? Without good data, you can't take the right decisions. So I think that's a critical part of it. And so many of the projects that the technology projects we're working on, we have over 15. When we look at between pilots and things we're already executing, I would say 15 technology activities going on. Now, some we may decide not to pursue after the pilot, but at this point, we're trying to look at as many things as we possibly can. And a lot of that is around gathering the data to guide how you invest the CapEx going forward. But one thing I wanted to say about WiredScore and SmartScore is what's really helpful, I think, in what WiredScore are doing is to establish standards. Because if you ask someone today, what's a smart building? If you ask 10 people, you'll get 10 different answers. And so it's very difficult to talk about what a smart building is, have a conversation with a tenant about why you're a smart building versus something else. And the same on connectivity. Before you'd say, yeah, I've got great connectivity. No one could challenge you on that. There was no standard by which you would measure how does your connectivity compare to someone else's. But what WiredScore doing in both connectivity and smart building is creating a standard that landlords can then say, I know this, I've done the things that the individual or the company that has set that standard recommends to do. And so over time, you'll be in a position where you can, where that SmartScore or WiredScore designation will make that conversation with tenants very easy about whether you're a smart building or not, or whether you have the right connectivity or not. Because you'll have a global standard of what that means to present to people. And I think that's really critical, because prior to this, we were all kind of, exploring a lot of things, trying a lot of things, but there was no real standard by which you could say, this is what I've been able to achieve, and this is how you should measure me against someone else in the market.
One of the key.
Well, do you have the feeling that you created? Sorry,
Jorge,
and I was going to ask. Can you hear me?
to that, yes.
Okay.
To that,
So yes, I was asking Will if he had the feeling that they created the taxonomy of sustainable buildings.
I think we're definitely helping all of our clients achieve what we've been talking about to reach those net zero carbon targets. And to do so, you ultimately need to start to be able to measure it, firstly. You need to measure it in a standardized way, which people can understand to show that you're doing it in the first place. And when we look at smart buildings and how it can help our clients do that, there are 4 key parts that we look at in terms of making sure that it's an inspiring environment, that it's cost efficient to run, it's future-proof, but it's also sustainable in the way that it can help reduce those carbon footprints. And that data point is a key aspect of that, so that you can measure how your building is performing, to be able to optimize it and make it an efficient workplace, absolutely, and create those fantastic user experiences that people really need to be able to work there and have a productive day. But then behind that, people are very aware of the carbon footprints that the real estate holds, and we're helping our clients to be able to measure that in a succinct and standardized way, to be able to demystify that to the occupiers that all of the landlords and developers really want to talk to and to target in a way that they understand, and therefore to be able to also talk to your investors and your wider stakeholders, so that you can show that you are taking meaningful action, which will help both on a small scale, a micro scale, but also on the macro scale as well.
Jose, sorry.
don't worry. I just wanted to add that we are all talking about very big objectives, long-term objectives, but we have a very operational result of WiredScore or these type of certifications that basically set a standard, which is shorten the decision taking from the companies. I mean, we've been in those visits with tenants looking at buildings where they wanted to compare technology. I mean, they had to bring the IT guy from elsewhere. It took weeks for that IT guy responsible to come to visit the sites, etc. Now, with these certifications, you come, you set a piece of paper, and you guarantee that the infrastructure is there, that the building is resilient into their connections and data. So it is a very operational result, but it's important to shorten and easy the decision-taking process to choose a building or to choose an office. So very interesting as well.
A follow-up question for you, Jose, on this precisely, because you make a reference before to the role that public administration plays, not only in terms of funding, but also in terms of the bureaucracy. So since now you are talking about the decision-making process, let's say the private one of tenants, but what about the role that certificates as WiredScore could play for shorten the public decision-making process? Do you think that, does it have an impact as well?
The public sector, when they decide to go to an office building, they are less sophisticated than private. They don't have to fight for talent. They are not attracting that digital talent that we talked about. Is at the end they are still maybe on the previous stage where bricks are bricks and workspace is just workspace. While in the private sector, we try to add more value into those bricks. We try to add brand. We try to talk about talent, policies, sustainable policies, etc. So ESG. We even talk about social responsibility. So all those pieces are still lacking on the public sector use of offices, I believe. But they will come to that.
I was referring maybe rather to in terms of permits that you might need for some, real estate transformation or renovation. Once you proved that, this is what how a smart building should be. This is the proven benefits and impact of what a smart building is nowadays. So that could help the public administration to, let's say, to shorten and to speed up the decision-making process that precisely you were referring to. I don't know, I'm just guessing.
I wish they could take those initiatives and set a standard to basically relieve funds based on very homogeneous risk certifications as WiredScore, SmartScore. But I think that's slow. That's a little bit of a slow path.
Yeah, Lynn, maybe I think you don't look very convinced about that.
Yeah, well, I think it varies country to country around Europe, and it'll be the same around the world too. And I've worked on many planning applications myself in different areas of the UK, and it does vary enormously from one authority to the other authority, depending on what they see as their priority. So I don't think there's a one size fits all, but I am seeing it becoming increasingly more important and being included in that decision-making process for planning. I wouldn't say it's shortening the process. I wish it was. But it's just more, it seems to be more of a tick box exercise, that they expect you to have that built into your development proposal when you're seeking planning permission, which I think is a good thing. I don't think that's wrong, but it's not quite filtered through to speeding up decisions with planning authorities. But it is becoming more normal to see that as part of that submission. And I wanted to go back to something you said there about the government and their own occupational standards as well, because here in the UK, we just went through this massive, it was very, very exciting for everybody. All the agents in the UK were very excited about this, but the government made a decision to relocate every single tax office in the UK, and they've been doing it over the past 5 years. So we had requirements coming out in the market for 30,000 square meters in almost every city in the UK: Manchester, Birmingham, London, Edinburgh. They were relocating, but I was involved in quite a number of those bids where we had buildings that were suitable, were big enough. And having gone through that process with that government tenant, I would say they were very, very sophisticated, actually. And, I'm going back over 4 or 5 years now, and that's still going on, that process. But right at the top of their agenda was digital connectivity, sustainability, and well-being of their staff. And I think that will change across all the jurisdictions in Europe. And I think it will become more and more important, because you cannot have a government banging on about policy if their own offices are not doing it as well. They need to they can't just talk about it, they need to walk it too. They need to be on that journey to net zero carbon. They need to actually help us in the real estate industry achieve it. So I think you'll see big changes coming. I really do.
We're talking a lot about sustainability, but we are nearing the end of our debate. We have a few minutes left, but before we end, I would like to touch upon other technologies that a few years ago were very important on the agenda. Now, because of the green agenda, maybe lose a bit of relevance, at least at the policy discussion, which is, for example, Internet of Things, which is, for example, 5G, rollover of 5G. So I wanted to ask you, maybe David and Will afterwards, how important is 5G for tenants nowadays? I mean, is this something that is only reduced to leisure, to video consumption, or is it that relevant for our daily work at the office? Maybe David, if you want to go first.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be very relevant for our daily work at the office, because everything is moving to the cloud. If you look at companies like Lemonade, Snowflake, companies you never even heard of before, Workday, Salesforce, enterprise software moving to the cloud is being deployed across all of our tenants, and for that they need greater connectivity and greater speed, and 5G will improve that speed of access and connectivity significantly. So I think for the tenant base, because of that move to the cloud, 5G is still very, very important for them.
Well,
5G and like you mentioned, Internet of Things, IoT sensors are two pivotal elements, because we are so connected already. On average, each of us owns 7 connected devices already. yes, that's part of our personal lives and our leisure time, but so much more in our working lives and our professional lives, to be able to collaborate and talk to people wherever they are, in the office and at home. And those sensors, one of the things that we look for in SmartScore is the technological foundation, a strong technological foundation that the landlords can build upon to create those incredible user stories. And the user stories are there, and we need to be able to measure what's happening so that we know that it is efficient and optimized. And that will allow people to be able to measure things in an entirely new manner, but also to create an easier life, and one which is more sustainable, clean, and more efficient in your day-to-day role in the office. And the 5G element of it as well, it means we're going to be able to have thousands of devices connected compared to what we have today in the same area. And that means in our offices, we're starting to see those technologies be brought in, and laying those foundations in the first place is such an important aspect of it, so that the tenants, the ones who are really going to be the key users at the end of the day, the employees within that office space, are the ones who we want to make sure that they're having the most productive outcomes from that. And all of those devices that we're going to be seeing coming forwards need to be accommodated to a certain respect now. And we're really excited and what we're seeing already is that so many landlords and developers recognise that in Spain and Portugal, are addressing it, and we're really excited to be working with them on that.
Very good, and thank you very much, Will, and thank you all panelists. Unfortunately, we reached the end of our discussion today. I mean, we have more topics to discuss for sure, maybe on future occasions, and hopefully face to face with a glass of wine of my region of Rioja. But this is all for today. I just hope that you enjoyed as much as I did this discussion. Many good takeaways, many good messages from my side. Thank you very much to the organizers, of course, and to WiredScore as well. And I will hand it over to you, Eden.
Thank you very much to the panel. Thank you, Will, Lynn, Jose, David, Grigor, and Jorge for a fascinating panel. I particularly enjoyed hearing about the role which government has to play in driving a future of net zero targets, net zero carbon, and also a connected future. We've seen some fantastic things happening from other governments around the world, including the City of London, and we look forward to seeing this happen further across Europe, Asia, and North America. Thank you everyone at home and in the office who joined us this morning. This is the beginning of our WiredScore and SmartScore journey in Spain and Portugal, and we are very excited for what's to come. Over the coming weeks and months, we'll be sharing more information on our website and social media channels about our work with some of the most forward-thinking landlords and developers. Please do get in touch if you would like to discuss anything we've touched on today in more detail. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.